For those who have been to Las Vegas, what's your what happens in Vegas, stays in Vegas story? I've lived there for 18 years, but went away for college. I recently went back to Vegas for a school-sponsored event, meaning I got to experience it as a tourist. Saw a homeless person jerking off underneath a blanket, accidentally made eye contact. Worst half second of my life. Fell in love with a porn star, spent Thursday through Monday acting like a couple. Felt different once we got to the real world. Who was it? Tell us. Lily sincere, she's disappeared from the game. Guess she wasn't that sincere. I am a dude. Was, mistakenly, I think, drugged at a club. Woke up sitting on a bench in the employee parking area of the MGM. Aside from being really sick for the next 24 hours, I thankfully wasn't robbed or harmed in any other way. At least you can take comfort in the fact that you probably saved whoever it was likely intended for a bad night. Geez. Resharing from an old comment of mine. Because this shit happens to amazing dude friends all the time, I'll keep it short. Hanging out at my favorite bar around age 19, saw an old friend's band play. I was hanging with another friend Kevin earlier. Kev is a big burly hockey player, so I hadn't been hit on by other dudes all night, but Kev had to leave to work the next day, so I was all alone near the night's end. Waiting for my tab alone at the end of the bar, and an old man in a weird hat comes up to me. I'd seen him staring before during the show. Hey sweetie. Your boyfriend in the band? Yep, you are totally. I'm dating the drummer. Why? Go me. Good lie. I'm gonna fight him for yap. He kept on with that train of thought. It took a little convincing to get the guy not to fight my not boyfriend. After a minute, he gets extremely irate, growls, and stomps straight out of the bar. Weird, right? Turns out he drew feed my drink an hour prior, when I was hanging with Kevin, but Kevin and I swapped beers somehow. Kev nearly crashed his car on the way home, had to be driven the rest of the way. Passenger took over driving Kev, as he got woozy, threw up in his yard before passing out in his own vomit, and his roommates had to carry him in and shower him before bed. He was unconscious but alive for the next 16 hours, through 8 hours of his alarm clock beeping and through his whole work shift. He'd had just that one beer. The man was checking to see if the drugs kicked in, and realized he'd wasted them when I was still alert enough to argue. If I, at 120 pounds, had gotten that beer, instead of 260 pound Kevin, I know I would have been a pretty corpse that night. Walking down the boulevard and a guy jumps on a parked police car, whips his dick out, and starts pissing all over the windshield of the vehicle. Cops jump out of the car while trying to avoid piss and reach for their taser. The speed pisser finishes, jumps off the hood, and narrowly dodges the tase. He then bolts across the street, but gets hit by a van on the opposite side of the road before he makes it all the way. I'm pretty certain his level of intoxication helped him survive being hit by that van. I was an Elvis impersonator in one of those high-class nudie shows. I warn that this isn't super exciting. I went to my sister's wedding in Vegas. I stayed in a hotel room with my dad. He was asleep upstairs while I was downstairs playing blackjack. When I went upstairs, I was approached by two women offering to have a good time. I said no thanks, but they asked me why not. I just said, oh, I'm sharing a room. They said that's fine, we can do 2 people. I said, well, it's my dad. They said we're still fine with that. So did you do it? I sharted myself badly in the middle of the Cosmopolitan Casino while trying to find a bathroom. I waddled the rest of the way to said bathroom and waited there for an hour until I was rescued by my brother, who was all the way on the other side of the strip. The underwear I was wearing at the time stayed in Vegas. It's a tie for me. At the bar of a busy casino on the strip, the Flamingo, a very drunk, possibly on drugs, mountain survivalist from Idaho with a Fu Manchu mustache pulled a gun on my wife and I because of how excited he was to show it off in case he ran into trouble. Saw a go-go dancer fall off a table and horribly break her leg. She was, probably, on drugs and tried to get back up to dance more. It didn't work. 3 people in an alley. One guy leaning against a wall. One woman on her knees sucking his dick. Another guy pissing on the woman. Las Vegas is basically concentrated Florida. Reddit has me believe that if there was ever an MMO which simulates the real world perfectly and where you could do anything, it would basically be Florida. I told this once before, but it's pretty funny. Spring break, 21 years old. Me and my best friend got blackout drunk and tried to get married in the hotel chapel cause it'd be funny. We texted our 4 other friends to come to the ceremony. 3 of them were also blackout drunk and asleep, but our 4th friend who didn't drink stopped us. Last time I was in Vegas it was 117 degrees. It smelled awful outside my friend's cheap hotel and within seconds I found the source at 11 in the morning. Some dude was vomiting super hard all over the ground outside the backseat of some car. His buddy was laughing and filming the whole thing on his smartphone. The whole "what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas" line is just an, admittedly fantastic, advertisement. If you do something stupid in Vegas and your friends see it, they'll never let you forget about it. Met a drunk girl at a bar. I was also drunk. We start making out in the one narrow hallway in the bar, blocking people from both sides. I left her shortly after that to fly home. I got her number and turns out she lives a few towns over from me 5 years later and we got married last August. A prostitute running away from Harrah's security jumped headfirst into a jeep at Crossroads to go to Caesars. Her bare ass was showing to whole Harrah's side of street and she was still hanging outside the jeep. A dude starts slapping her ass. Lights turned green and they fucking floor it with her in jeep and she got away. Harrah's security were not even mad and started laughing immediately. Worked strip 6 months and this was my favorite. I originally thought when you said head first I thought you meant head on, like over the hood and through the windshield. It made the next bit about a dude slapping her ass seem completely fucked up. Woohoo. Free dead hooker covered in blood and glass. Slaps ass. They had a bachelorette party in Vegas. Bride gets married soon after. 6 months later I am at a party and I overhear my girlfriend, a bridesmaid, talking to her friend. Well, we were partying with some guys who offered to give us drugs and she was really drunk and they talked her into the shower. She thought it was her fiance. She kept saying his name. She realizes I can hear her conversation and says. But we went in and got her out before anything happened. Several months pass and I discover my girlfriend is cheating on me, unrelated to Vegas. We break up. Shortly after I get the truth from a mutual friend about what happened in Vegas. Apparently my ex told the whole story to her after we had broken up. Every girl in the bachelorette party hooked up with someone that night. 3 or 4 of them have boyfriends they are still within the bride. She totally got fucked in the shower. I spent 30 days there getting sober, so not much. Who goes to Vegas to get sober? If you can stay sober in Vegas, you can stay sober anywhere. I believe that's on the shit they give you on the way out. Went to Vegas for legalization day, the 1st of July, 2017. Got some weed for the first time in nearly a decade, and that was cool. But the part that stays in Vegas didn't. She turns 1 on Thursday. Username checks out. Back in 1980s I visited a buddy who was living in Vegas. I got a twin room in the old Imperial Palace so he could crash with me if he wanted. He showed up with some powerful psychedelics and we had a bit of a fear and loathing experience. Vegas is very weird when you're tripping. So anyway, we ended up back in my room very late. Somehow, along our trip we picked up a bunch of balloons. My room overlooked the pool, many floors below. My buddy offered to have us each select a balloon and throw it out the window. Whichever balloon landed in the pool first was the winner. So we tossed our balloons. They were just lolling around the pool area while my buddy and I screamed like it was a horse race. I'm not sure of the science, but apparently when a body of water cools it causes a pressure region that tends to push away ultralight objects like balloons. Each balloon landed on the deck and rolled in between chairs and over chaise lounges, but not into the pool. What felt like hours ticked by as we yelled at our balloons at the top of our lungs, laughing and carrying on. Then came the boom 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 on the door. We were shocked into silence. Who could it be? The police? The army? A huge scary monster? OMG, maybe it's a monster. Then some guy burst in the door. It was hotel security. What the hell is going on? You two need to shut the hell up and go to bed. Why was your door ajar? It's 4 in the morning. Go to sleep. Then he left. We went to bed but couldn't sleep. For some reason. I've never told this story before. I guess that shit really does stay in Vegas. I went to a fancy brunch buffet with a group of friends. It was $60. Never been so ashamed in my life. The opposite of what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas happened to my wife and I when we visited. Went to a burlesque show and went back to the hotel to get it on. Returned home and found out wife was pregnant and our daughter is due in July. It worked out great though since we wanted a kid and it makes for a funny story. Should have just maxed out a credit card going gambling instead of boinking. Would have been cheaper in the long run. However, congrats on your impending female spawn. And do not name her after the burlesque dancers. Hotel maybe, this is our daughter room 2271. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe to Best Questions.